I finally got some free time to get some work done on this thing. Now the genius who designed this thing decided it'd be a good idea to put the sprues right on some mating points. So we had to clean all that up just to get these pieces to sit flush. Now the other mounting tabs were just as bad. Everything needed a little bit of work, a little bit of massaging, just to get parts to fit. Once we got it though, these parts fit like a dream. Now, in my small part of the world, we do not require our vehicles to have front license plates. So I'm going to shave this one off because I don't want one on the front of this car. So I'm going to use a little bitty piece of tape to act as a dam of sorts, and I'm just going to plug the holes with some super glue. Eventually, I get the piece of tape to cooperate with me. I'm a little bit too impatient to wait 1 whole minute for this glue to dry on its own, so I'm going to use a little bit of kicker to speed things up. From what I could see, the holes are good and plugged, so from here I'm just going to sand it all down. Once I get it knocked down with the heavier stuff, I'm going to go back in with some finer grit to smooth it all out. Now, if you follow the beam of light, you will see that there's no interruption. It's just a nice, smooth transition across the whole piece. Now, let's do something about those grills. You guys have all seen me do this before. I just go around a curve, drill little bitty holes, and then I just go back with my X-Acto and just connect the dots. Now once we get it all cleaned up, you can see that I also left a little bit of sliver material there on the edge. Now it looks kind of goofy, but I had to do that because it's got the mounting tab for the bumper. But once we get it all installed, it's very well hidden. You can barely tell it's there. Now, since I've had no luck tracking down a Plamos kit, I'm just going to make my own mesh inserts. Just a very rough outline with a Sharpie. Gives us a little pattern. Let's go back and cut it out. And I don't know why I sped up this segment, but here's a quick little preview of how that's going to look. I guess it's the same for both sides, so here's what the other side's going to look like as well. So as you can see, this piece also has some mesh molded into it, so yeah, we're just going to do the same thing. I cut this little section out from the other side and used it as a pattern, and then just replaced it with some more mesh. It's kind of hard to see down in there, but well, it's down there. I'm not a fan of the carbon pattern on the factory decals. The weave looks a little too big and out of scale. So here's a quick little trick to make some templates if you have the original decals. The factory paper that comes over to protect it, it's very transparent. If you put just a cheap piece of masking tape over that, it's also transparent, and you could just trace over your patterns. Now sneak a peek at the pattern just so you know which way the weave is going, so you have a reference for later. Now this is fine and dandy if you have an existing pattern to go off of, but if you don't, we have to make our own. Now it requires just a little bit more work, but it is just as easy. It's as simple as putting a piece of masking tape over where you want it and then just tracing the outline. I want this stuff to be split down the middle and have the patterns going in opposite directions. Now I did a whole lot of math off camera just so I know exactly where the dead center of this is. From there, I just made a template the exact same way for literally everything else on the car I want to be in carbon fiber. There is going to be a lot of carbon on this car. Now this is about 90% of what I have so far. In the end, I ended up using about a sheet and a half of this stuff just to get everything I wanted in carbon detail. And I just realized I got some of this stuff I need to switch around because I got the patterns going the wrong way. Now you might notice some of these are oversized. That is on purpose. I like having just a little bit extra material to work with. I didn't like how just plain this car looks, so I'm going to make a simple wing for it. So I'm going to use the Mustang GT4 wing as a template. Some of you might be wondering, this is one of those credit cards that I get in the mail all the time from credit card companies wanting me to sign up. I have a drawer full of those and I never throw them away because I like having an extra plastic card on hand. It's still in rough draft mode, but this is about what it's going to look like when it's all said and done. I went to Google and just searched 570S wing and kind of like this, just the plain one the best. So I'm just going to do a little bit of much needed housekeeping, then we'll get to paint. Now, even with my extraction fans on, there is still just so much overspray that comes from rattle cans. Now, as usual, I'm just using Tamiya rattle can white primer. For those of you that are new, I used to do a whole lot of resin stuff with cosplay and just various nerdy video game stuff. Not to mention, some of our favorite car parts are aftermarket cast in resin. And this is the only primer I could find that will reliably stick to anything that's made of resin. So I have a whole case of this stuff because I bought it in bulk because I was using it like crazy. As you can see, there's still a whole lot of bleed through of that original orange color. Not too concerned because I'm going to be painting it orange, but I still want just a nice layer of primer underneath all the paint. I think I ended up doing 4 layers just to get coverage that I was happy with. Then I gave it a quick sand with some 2000 grit, then we moved on to our base color. Now the volcano orange I'm using, it is a 3-stage paint. First stage is a silver base coat, and that is from our good friends at Splash Paints. Now, as usual with paint, you always start in the wheel wells, little crevices and nooks and crannies and things that you're liable just to overlook. So when you're later on down the road and you get carried away, you do overlook them. No need to worry because you already have them taken care of. I'm on the second coat here. I let it sit about 15 minutes between coats. You don't really have to wait that long because there's no gloss in this, so it dries super fast. I just got sidetracked. If you give this stuff about 5 minutes, it'll be just fine. Now silver covers very well. This only ended up being about 2.5 coats just because I wanted to use up the last bit of paint in my airbrush here. One 5 milliliter cup was enough to do 2.5 coats for the body and all the individual parts. Now part 2 of the 3-stage paint is the actual orange. Now I will admit I have been dreading this part because I've heard some horror stories about volcano orange. It has to be built up in multiple layers of very light coats. They They all have to be even with perfect coverage or it's not gonna look right. It's gonna be streaky, it's gonna be blotchy, it's just gonna look bad. You can already see it's thicker in some areas, especially on the nose and the rear fascia. This stuff is not easy to work with. Now it took 6 coats of very thin layers to get to this point right here. Now those of you that know me know that I have a very heavy trigger finger and I have a hard time keeping all my paint layers uniform all across the entire project. So what I ended up doing was just adjusting my airbrush and turning it all the way down, so even though I'm full blast on that trigger, I'm only putting out so much paint. When I put this under the spotlight here in a second, you're going to get a glimpse of what this stuff truly looks like and just how beautiful it is. As I mentioned in the unboxing of this kit, it is very hot in Kansas and it's very humid. This moisture trap, I kid you not, was damn near full. You guys can't really see it, but right here, when I go to open this back up, I just have a steady stream of water just running down my arm. See how wet my middle finger is here? That is what the whole backside of my arm looks like. Now, according to the nerd on the Weather Channel, it's supposed to start getting decent sometime next week. So that's probably when I'm going to tackle the clear, because if you guys remember on the R8 build, that clear coat I use and humidity do not go well together. So what I'm saying is it's going to be another couple of weeks before I get an update out. Thank you for your patience.